Hello and thank you for listening. This audio recording was made on Friday the 7th of January 2022 and it was recorded on Twitter Spaces. Since the first call for the Healthy Ageing Catalyst Awards in 2020, Zinc and the UKRI have partnered to fund entrepreneurial academics who want to translate their research into impactful and scalable products, services and interventions. Which, of course, we know in dementia are very needed. The awards are part of the UKRI Healthy Ageing Challenge and the Healthy Longevity Global Grand Challenge, which was founded by the US National Academy of Medicine. This is a worldwide movement to improve physical, mental and social well-being for people as they age. In 2022, this year, Zinc will be supporting the third cohort of researchers to create innovations that allow everyone to remain active and productive and independent and socially connected across generations for as long as possible and narrow the gap between experiences of the richest and poorest. This call is open now, and in this session, we're going to be talking to researchers about translating research into products and services that can improve the lives of people with dementia who've been through the Zinc call. And we'll be discussing opportunities and the difficulties that researchers can encounter when entering the world of innovation and entrepreneurship. So I'd like to welcome our guests for today. First of all, we have Dr. Tim Shakespeare from Zinc. Tim Shakespeare, who's previously created an online course for carers and professionals providing education on less common forms of dementia, and now leads the programme to support researchers with early stage innovation for better quality in later life for Zinc. Hi, Tim.
Hello, Adam. Hi. Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to talk to you today. We also have Dr. Laura Booi. Am I saying this right, Laura? Do you know what, we've spoken before and I have forgotten. Is it Booi?
It's Booi. You make it very hard for yourself, Adam.
I know, I'm sorry. Dr. Laura Booi, who is a research fellow at the Centre for Dementia Research at Leeds Beckett. You've moved. I'm sure you weren't at Leeds Beckett last time we spoke.
I was not. No, still in Newcastle, but working at Leeds now. Nice to speak with you again.
Oh, well, that's a lovely commute as well down the A64.
The train is actually pretty nice, but yeah.
And Laura's developing a peer-to-peer co-designing peer mentorship program for people living with dementia. We also have, finally, Dr. Jack Fennell, co-founder of Hug by Laugh. They created a sensory product designed to bring comfort and joy to people living with dementia. And I know a little bit more about this because, of course, we did also support Alzheimer's Society with their Innovation Accelerator a couple of months ago, and Hug was part of that as well. So hi, Jack, and thanks for joining.
Hi there. Thanks for having us.
And you're at, am I right in thinking you're at Bristol, University of Bristol?
I'm at University of West of England in Bristol, yes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So fundamental research has its place to build our understanding and set the stage for future improvements to health and care. But there are also many research insights that could be applied which can improve our lives now. We're talking to people who are the people I've just introduced there, who are taking entrepreneurial approach to developing new products and services that can really improve the lives of people with dementia. So it's wonderful to have you all with us today, and great that you've taken this exciting step into entrepreneurship, but not only for yourselves, I imagine, but also particularly with people with dementia in mind. So Tim, I'm going to come to you first of all. Can you tell us about the Catalyst Awards and how you support researchers to build these products and services?
Yes, sure. And thanks for the introduction. So I think we all know the kind of statistics about the ageing society we live in. And one that struck me the other day that I hadn't come across is that a third of children born today are going to live to 100. And what that means is there's an incredible challenge, there's an incredible opportunity to improve the quality of later life. And that's what UKRI's Healthy Ageing Challenge is about. And as part of that challenge, we recognise there's a wealth of untapped potential in research organisations across the UK that we want to unlock. And that's talented individuals with unique insights who, with the right support, could translate their research into innovations that help people right now but that often the focus is on the kind of research publications, which, while it's really important, we also think there's further uses and more that we could do with researchers and researchers who really want to do this, but don't necessarily have the right support. So that's why Zinc was really excited to partner with UKRI on the Catalyst Awards. Zinc has this background in supporting innovation and entrepreneurship, helping people build from just the understanding of a problem and an early idea into a product and service that can grow to reach everybody who needs it. And there's a number of ways that we support people through that. So on the Catalyst program, we provide workshops, we build a cohort of people working on things together and help them learn from each other. We provide one-to-one support, coaching, and access to a network of experts in business and innovation that can help people understand how to build their product and also how to build the structure around it that gives it a life beyond a research grant.
Perfect. So am I understanding this correctly then? So this isn't so much like a Kickstart investment fund. This is, or is it that, or in addition to support for the individual that's taking forward the product or service?
What the Catalyst Awards offer is a grant of £62,500. So it's in the funding terms, it's a bit like a normal research grant. But what people can do with that grant is very different. So we don't expect people to carry out a research study or research project. We want them to carry out activities that get them closer to delivering their product or service. And so alongside that grant, they get a program of support from Zinc. And again, this makes it very different from a kind of standard research grant, is that there's a program of support that we offer that we kind of end up meeting with people on a weekly basis and supporting them through the journey.
I see. So can that be, theoretically, can that be spent on salary to allow you to free up the time from, the day job?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what a lot of people spend a great proportion of the funding on, is their salary or salary of a research assistant, or especially for the early career researchers. And we really do encourage early career researchers to apply because it's a great opportunity for people to be the PI. And we don't expect that to be someone really senior. What we're really looking for is someone who's kind of committed to the project and the idea, and that has the dedicated time to push things forwards.
And that comes up a lot, isn't it? I know through talking to quite a lot of clinical researchers that they spend their PhD days, particularly in qualitative research and in that clinical space, doing this research, discovering and creating an intervention that they test and evaluate, and it turns out that it works, publish the results, and then increasingly become frustrated when that's it doesn't get picked up, or they move on to whatever is the next project, and that just is left to live out its life as a publication rather than an actual service.
That's exactly the problem that we're trying to tackle, and the Catalyst Awards are an opportunity for people who are in that situation to have a grant that allows them to do the work that they really want to do, to push forwards that thing that they've started developing, to build something based on the research that they've done. And it's for people who want to see a real difference being made in people's lives in the shorter term with the research that they've been carrying out.
And it's wonderful that this is clearly as such wide scope. I guess this could be anything from, and we're going to talk to Laura and Jack in a little while about their services. But I mean, could you give us an example? Give us a few examples of how this is, others that have used this in the past.
Sure. So the scope is healthy aging, but within that, as you say, it's very broad. And we don't just mean about health and care. We mean about anything that improves quality of life in later life. So examples include some of those more health-related things. So, for example, helping people to manage diabetes, but all the way through to things like helping people do physical activity, thinking about the housing that we design and how we can design flexible housing so people can age in place. There's a really broad range of different areas. So other areas we're particularly interested in are kind of finance and how we can improve people's financial health in later life and the knock-on influences that may well have in other aspects of their life as well. So there's a large range of areas that are of interest when it comes to this. And clearly, dementia is a really important part of the problems that people experience in later life. And so solutions related to dementia are really of interest in Catalyst.
And how far on do you have to have your kind of concept, your idea developed? I mean, if you finished your say you have been a researcher, or even if you're just, you know, a former carer who's got a great idea, how developed does that have to be to apply to this?
It really doesn't have to be very developed at all. We're really focusing on early stage innovation. So people can apply just with an understanding of the problem that they want to tackle and some research that talks to that problem, or they might already have some ideas about how they're tackling that. And through the program, we can help them develop, and they will develop their approach to building a solution from that problem, or maybe trying a number of different solutions and finding what works best. So people can apply from a really early stage. And we also do have some people who apply at a slightly later stage who already started developing a product or service and need some support to kind of take the next steps with it. So we offer that as well.
That actually, you just answered my next question. If you've already kind of started something, but so this is great. So essentially, then the Zinc program comes with some financial support, either for salaries or for doing things. But it sounds like the other part of this is incredibly valuable, that kind of making connections. So tell us a little bit more about that, the kind of package of support for the individual.
Sure. So one thing I was going to say is that one thing we encourage is flexibility in the solution. And one thing we recognize that it takes to be successful in entrepreneurship and in product and service development is that you need to learn through short cycles of testing and learning and developing the product through those cycles, rather than having one particular thing in mind and working towards that without getting feedback in the meantime. So we encourage that kind of iterative approach to developing a product or service. And when it comes to the support we offer, so we think about supporting people across 4 journeys towards kind of building their innovation. So one is the personal journey. So that's the approach that they take personally, the skills and abilities that they have, and helping support them with that. One is the product journey, so that's developing the product or service itself, building the evidence around it, developing the kind of technology, if technology is needed to provide that service. Then we talk about the enterprise journey, so that's building the structure or the vehicle around the product, actually working out how this is going to be delivered to people, how you're going to raise money to provide it. Is it going to be a commercial service? Is it going to be a social enterprise? Might it be a charity? So building that enterprise around it to make sure it has a long life beyond the grant. And then finally, we talk about the community journey. And that's who are the people you're involving to build this with you. That might be people in your team, but also who are the experts who are outside of your team who might be able to advise you. And that's where Zinc has a lot of links to people that can help people build a community around what they're doing. So they have allies and supporters on their journey.
So I guess could that include things like introducing you to people who to do focus group work will benefit from the product that you're going to produce, and you know, bankers who can provide financial advice, things like that?
Yes, absolutely. So it includes people who have lived experience. So we have a connection with Voice at the National Innovation Centre for Ageing based in Newcastle that help people get access to older people who can provide them with information and support on their journey, but also to people who are potentially investors, people that understand the social care space or and the NHS, people who are previous social entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs who can give advice from their own journey and support in that way. So it's a real wide range, and that's, you know, tailored to each individual person on the programme and what support they need. We can help them find the connections that can answer questions and help advise them, particularly when they're at kind of making the point of making strategic decisions about what direction to go in. It can be useful to cast the net out and see who out there might have interesting views on that decision.
This is so exciting. I know so many people who've kind of gone through that pain and frustration, who you know, knowing that this was there and available for them to apply to, could make the difference between them taking that step and realizing the delivery of the thing they've been researching. Thank you very much, Tim. Let's move on, and if I could ask Laura next, tell us about the service you're developing, Laura.
Yeah, definitely. Can you can hear me okay, right, Adam?
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly.
Terrific. So the service that I'm developing is actually a program for people for to kind of alleviate their post-diagnostic support experience. Right now, this is a dementia podcast. There's massive issues and gaps in people's post-diagnostic situations. So once they're actually diagnosed with dementia, and most often living in the community. So I'm working with a number of people living with dementia to co-design a peer-to-peer mentorship program to be delivered over Zoom. And originally, this idea was for anybody living with dementia, so Alzheimer's type dementia. But now, based on a lot of conversations and the program with the Catalyst Award, I may be honing it down to pilot it just with individuals living with Lewy body dementia at the beginning, and then rolling it out to more people living with dementia. But that's basically it in a nutshell.
So this is, so who are on the side? Obviously, you've got people with lived experience with dementia on one side. Who would you expect are on the other side? Are these researchers or businesses?
Yeah, really. No, good question. And because I'm based in Newcastle, I worked very closely with the National Innovation Centre on Ageing and with Voice to get their patient public involvement experience to run by this idea with them over and over again. So the people on the sideline, there's a brilliant man named Damian Murphy who developed a Good Life program. So a Good Life is basically developed by people living with dementia in the community to say, this is what we want to have been told once we have dementia. So them educating each other based on their experiences of what the gaps were that they felt. So I'm working with Damian as well as a Lewy Body Association to develop this program based on their curriculum. So they rolled out a program a few years ago in person, but now because of COVID, and really this should all be available online anyway, never mind the fact that there's a pandemic. It's just more inclusive often that way. So those would be the individuals. So people who've already been working in this sector for a while, but not necessarily researchers.
So, yeah, I mean, you can see how facilitating that knowledge transfer would be so valuable across so many areas, whether you're a small business that kind of supports older people, or whether you're a council or a transport authority, whoever you are, kind of being able to have had that knowledge of dementia coming from somebody who's lived through it, and so your service will facilitate that.
Yeah, buddy, but it's more so like let's say this is the example I used in the interview for the Catalyst Award. Tim just got diagnosed with dementia, and so he's now in the doctor's office. The doctor has very few resources that they can give to Tim, but one of the resources would be, hey, I can link you in with this peer mentorship program, and then in that program, Tim can then be set up with somebody like, let's say myself. I'm not living with dementia, but somebody who theoretically would be living with dementia, who's gone through the program of support and then been able to match up with Tim as their peer mentor. So kind of like any peer mentorship program, but this one is based on people living with dementia.
I see. So
right, buddy? Yeah, now you get it.
So this is kind of giving people who've lived through that. I mean, so the mentor
100%.
could be somebody living with dementia, or a former carer, or a.
Yeah, I really want to focus on dementia, though, right? There's a number of peer mentorship programs for people who are caregivers, or peer support programs, but then the peer supports for people living with dementia, I mean, it happens organically with really great resources from Dementia Alliance International, Three Nations Dementia Working Group, all of which I've spoken to about my program, and they're working with me, and they're absolutely brilliant. This would not exist without their support. But it's just getting this as a formalized program so it can be offered as social prescribing or offered in a healthcare setting, rather just something you Google online.
Oh, that's a wonderful idea, and being able to actually talk to somebody who's lived through that, as opposed to reading a website that says these are the symptoms and these are how they progress, particularly when they're so uncertain, because everybody develops at different, experiences dementia in a different way. So that's incredibly valuable.
Thank you. Let's see what happens.
So how far along have you gotten? And when did you? So were you in the last cohort from Zinc?
No, I'm in this cohort. So Tim and I meet regularly. He is my Zinc contact to push forward this program. Right now, it's in the process of starting to be piloted. We have the curriculum developed, and we're trying to work with people to to get mentors who are who are already living with dementia, and then we'll link them up with people who just got diagnosed with dementia. We'll do it really small, but that's one of the things I love about this award is there isn't this big push to make this big, get this published. It's just do it right, get it out there.
And is there an expectation from the investors, if you like, that this becomes some kind of can this be a social enterprise that's not for profit, or does it have to be profit making? Or
no, it's really really interesting. It doesn't have to be profit making, but they're really smart with trying to navigate people like myself who are researchers who I don't know about other researchers, but myself and people in my cohort, I don't know very much about product development, about licensing, intellectual property, the laws and legalities in that world. So the Catalyst program has been brilliant to say, okay, you want to do a program, but these are some of the pitfalls you need to be aware of because it's not all thinking about publications right now.
I see. And what made you shift from purely doing research to create this? What created that shift?
I don't think it was a shift. I think it was just waiting till there was the alignment of seeing the Catalyst Award was available and then applying for it. I was as soon as I saw what the award offered, I wanted to get involved with it, especially for the program that came along with the funding.
Because you're a clinician by background, am I right?
Nope, just researcher. No, I don't mean just
sorry,
researcher.
I thought
I'm not
gerontologist.
Yeah, gerontologist.
I see. So it wasn't a sense of frustration at not being able to translate research into service.
Look, I think there's always that frustration, right? I think when I've been studying dementia for a very long time, and to see things that should be implemented that are not implemented, and we all know article after article that there's a gap and this gap could be filled with X. There's definitely the underlying frustration as well.
And you could see how what you've come up with here could quite easily be commissioned by primary care trusts or charity, or delivered by on a larger scale. Have you thought about, do you take this, is this something that could be translated internationally as well?
100%. And just to be very clear, this isn't my brainwave. This is something in collaboration with a lot of dementia advocacy groups over many years. I'm not taking ownership of this idea in any way, but I am working with the University of British Columbia Centre for Personhood and Dementia with Deb O'Connor, and we are talking about piloting it in Canada as well as in the UK. But in the end, I don't know if where it's actually situated matters as much as what's being delivered in the program, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you were fairly well connected even before Zinc came along and did that. But have Zinc been able to help with that as well?
Oh, 100%. Like I said before, just navigating all these areas about product development that I honestly have I pretty much have no idea about.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Laura. Let's move on and talk to Jack for a little bit. We'll come back to you on the other questions in a minute, Laura. Jack, can you tell us about the background and your background and Hug?
Yeah, hi. So as you've already mentioned, then I'm a lecturer and design researcher in product design, and also run the spin-out company, which is called Hug by Laugh, which is about bringing this product, the Hug, to market. So Hug came about from research that we did at Cardiff Metropolitan University. And over the last 6 years or so, I've been involved in a team that's been designing and developing playful objects for people living with late-stage dementia and who are towards end of life. So that research started with quite a significant funding grant from AHRC to co-design 6 objects for 6 people, and Hug was just one of those objects. So just to tell you a little bit about what Hug is, it's difficult to explain Hug without an image, but it's a comforting object. It's a little bit like a teddy bear with really long arms and legs that are weighted and they wrap around you. So it really feels like you're having a hug. It's also got some electronics within it, a small module unit that mimics a heartbeat and plays your favourite music as well, so it can be personalised. And what happened with Hug is we originally designed it for one lady called Thelma, and it had some amazing results for Thelma, and she responded so well to it. She, over the course of about 6 months of going back to visit Thelma in her care home, we noticed how her body language changed, and she became much more relaxed, and she began to communicate with us. Her eyes opened, she was eating and drinking much better, and really significantly, she stopped falling. So the care staff there were quite amazed by this. And of course, through our research and coming towards the end of the project, we were going to conferences and talking about this and telling this story. And we had healthcare professionals coming up to us just saying, where can we get this? We want to buy Hug. So at that point, we were like, hang on, this is just one prototype with one person. We need to test it, evaluate it. So we secured some more funding and began collaborating then with a care home in Cardiff called Sunrise Senior Living, and also with the NHS there, where we tested Hug with a bigger group of people. And we've recently come to the end of that work, that evaluation, and that also has shown that Hug is significantly improving the well-being for the majority of people that use Hug over a period of time. So with all that kind of behind us and these requests to buy Hug, we knew we had to do something to get Hug into the hands of more people. So with the support of the university, we started looking for ways to do that. So we explored things like licensing and such, but we then came across the Accelerator Award from Alzheimer's Society, and we applied for that and we won one of those awards. So we formed a spin-out company, and that's where we are now, so Hug by Laugh, and ran a crowdfunder as well to secure more funding. So where we are now, we're at the end of that Accelerator Award. We've done a year with them, and we've just launched Hug as a product a few months ago, so it's now available to buy. So it's been quite a journey over the last few years, but it's amazing now to see Hug as a product out there and being used by people.
That must have been incredibly exciting, but also nerve-wracking as well, I imagine. Kind of transitioning from that academic world to creating a product and a business. And I mean, I can't imagine the amount you must have learned in the last 18 months, 2 years.
Absolutely.
Just even on manufacture and, I don't know, rules about things with batteries and licensing.
Absolutely, so much to use, and in a pandemic as well, and with Brexit as well, we had so many challenges kind of come our way and hurdles to jump. So it has been very challenging, but I think our kind of determination to get Hug as a product out there kind of always won through. So yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Well, I've pinned to the top of this, for anybody listening, I've pinned to the top of the Spaces chat here a tweet that came from Hug a couple of months ago that talks more about their journey. And also as well, you can see some pictures of the product that Jack talked about there. So, Jack, can I ask, what are the different skills and approaches needed when researchers shift their focus from generating research knowledge and papers to creating a new product or service?
Well, I think even though we've got, so in our situation, we are designers, design researchers. So though we had a prototype there, it still was quite a shift there between having a prototype and bringing a product to market. There's a lot to learn. But I think if we think of our skills, though, as researchers, I think they put us in a really good kind of standing for that, and that kind of ability to be able to ask or to work out what those questions are and find ways to answer them, and The key thing for us, and I think for most people, will be about forming those networks and those collaborations, and making sure that you find those people that can help you make it happen. Certainly for us, we needed to learn a lot very quickly about business, setting up a business, and as I say, that transition from having a prototype to actually designing something that's suitable for manufacture. And we had to work with people in the NHS as well to understand how a product could be used in that setting, but also things, as you mentioned earlier, around safety and compliance and the legalities of that. There was a lot to learn, but there's people out there to help you, and being part of a program like this, an award like this, gives you that access to those networks and really does open those doors.
Fantastic. And I mean, I think we've got two great examples here from Jack and Laura. And I mean, obviously today we're focusing on products and services that can help people with dementia, but as we've talked and learned from Tim, that this is for across the board of aging. So you could see how this could really help so many, not just researchers, but people who've got great ideas to come and bring these forward. And don't be afraid if you've got an idea and you've got something you've tried out, or even if you're something you've learned at home or working with the community that you know works, that this is a great way to get support you need to take the step into making this a reality. Thank you very much, Jack. That's brilliant. So I'm going to come back to Laura for a second and ask, I think we covered this a little bit earlier, but what's your vision, if you like, for what difference you can make, and how Zinc are helping you realize that?
The vision would be that whenever somebody has a dementia diagnosis, they're immediately linked in with a program like a peer mentorship program to kind of help them navigate their experience of living with dementia now. You asked an interesting question of, do I see this going away, not just in the UK, but also internationally? And I definitely do. And I think that's why Tim and I are talking about holding the intellectual property of the actual course, but then licensing that, but then letting people use it as much as they want. So let's say somebody in New Zealand wants the program, they can have the program, like that won't be, that won't cost, but it's just they can't change anything in the program or something like that. So I think being with the Catalyst program has kind of made me more aware of how products and programs can live outside of just the realm of research or healthcare, but in something kind of something else.
And I know from myself as a researcher that's kind of comes up with these things, taking something that's delivered once and then making it sustainable is the hard part. I mean, just having a good idea and a great service isn't enough to. You still need money to keep things going along the way. But there are so many different ways to generate that, aren't there? I guess, whether that's through licensing or advertising or sponsorship, and is that something you've learned through this process?
Yeah, definitely. It's something we are learning about. And the Catalyst program Zinc has been brilliant about bringing in experts with exactly that expertise and professionalism to come and speak to us. And they speak to the cohort on the level that we're at, knowing that not all of us come to the table with a lot of product development and business expertise. So they're really good about that. And whenever there needs to be a follow-up, everybody's very generous with their time about speaking with members of the cohort.
Thank you, Laura. And what about you, Jack? What's your vision for the difference you can make with Hug?
I think, this is what we're just seeing now. The fact that we've launched it a few months ago is seeing that difference, seeing big organisations implementing Hug has been amazing. We can see how our research journey has resulted in a product that's now being used and is benefiting people. I think something else that's come about from this as well, though, which we hadn't quite anticipated would happen, is that actually the research hasn't stopped. So the research didn't stop when we made that decision to develop Hug into a product for market. What's happening now is that organisations are approaching us because we've now got a product, wanting us to help them in terms of measuring the impact of Hug in their setting as well. So actually what's happening is it's almost like full circle, that it's leading now to additional research and like a service offering, I guess, around Hug, which is something we hadn't expected, but it's really great to see as well.
Yeah, I can imagine, can't you? I mean, once people get the idea that they might do this, that they're going to come back to you with different questions and say, oh, have you evaluated this? Or have you used it in this particular environment? And then you're kind of chasing around going, no, but we can.
Absolutely.
to try and find those things out. I mean, also as well, I guess what I assume might go on to be your first product, but once you have a business, I guess you have to also continue to innovate, adapt, listen, and create Hug version 2.
Yes,
or
absolutely.
Is that scary? Am I? No, for God's sake, shut up. We've only just launched Hug version 1.
Absolutely. I think though, as designers as well, we're always thinking about what the next thing is going to be, and we've been thinking that for many years. What's the next product? But actually, again, picking up on what's already been mentioned briefly, is that having the business now is a great vehicle to really bridge that gap between the research that was sitting in the university to now being able to apply it and get it out there and get people using it. So it allows us to do that through the business while still being attached to university, which is a great thing.
I see. Well, and that was, I guess, kind of linked to the next question I had in the list, but I'm going to come to you first on this. And I hope this doesn't put people off the answer to this, but just how much of your time and life has this taken over? Because I was going to say, what are the biggest challenges for researchers engaging in this work? But we've talked a lot already about the knowledge, the fact that there's so much to learn. But the great thing is that there's support out there, whether that's through Zinc or the Alzheimer's Society Fellowships, innovation programs, or your own university. I guess they have a commercial arm that will give advice as well. But how do you find the time? Have you been able to keep the day job going as well?
Very good question. I think the appropriate answer to that is, so don't underestimate the amount of time it will take. I think it's been very difficult over the last few years to fit it all in. I think actually, having to work from home as well has helped us in terms of that, of getting these things done. But actually what's happening now is, whilst it's been tricky to manage teaching, researching and starting a business, is what we're finding now is, there's a team of us, there's 3 of us doing this, and we've all got these, if you like, day jobs within the university, but they're feeding into each other and supporting each other. So it's actually a good thing. It's challenging, absolutely, but it is a good thing to have, because it, as I say, this research now coming back through the business, feeding back into our university work is really beneficial.
Yeah, and I mean, it must be really personally rewarding as well. I looked at your Twitter earlier, and to be able to get that feedback from people where they say this is really great, or to see the impact of the thing you've created making a difference to people's lives, must be incredibly motivating.
Yes, definitely. That's why we're doing it. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Tim, I'm going to come back to you. We've been quiet for a while, but having seen some of the people that have dropped into the space and listened in, I've noticed we've had a couple of lab researchers join us. Are there anybody who's come from the lab who's created something that's fallen onto the Catalyst Awards in the past?
Yeah, there are. So with the Catalyst Awards, what our kind of thesis, what we think is that there's relatively better support for this kind of research translation when it comes to areas like engineering, clinical devices, pharmaceuticals, medical devices. And so we are particularly interested in the kind of social sciences, arts and humanities. And also at Zinc, our particular strength lies in kind of human sciences and behaviour sciences. And that's where we feel we can kind of add the most value to people. But having said that, there are some examples that have come through that more kind of clinical or medical or kind of lab-based route that are interesting and relevant. So to give you an example, there's a researcher who's been looking at how you might be able to monitor people's stool samples and urine through a device installed in a toilet. And they've done a lot of work in the lab kind of developing this device and working out how to use it. But with Zinc support in the Catalyst program, they're particularly looking at the kind of human factors of how you might implement that kind of solution. So what is it that's going to make it usable for people? What are the ways in which you need to kind of present that device to people in order for them to be likely to kind of accept it in their homes and see it as a useful thing to have? So whilst we probably wouldn't support things that are more kind of pharmaceutical, and it needs to be things that are kind of relatively close to being developed into products and services that people can use. There are some ways in which those kind of more lab-based research can still be relevant in some cases with the Catalyst Awards.
Thanks, Tim. In fact, actually, let's just remind everybody who, if you missed the start, the Zinc will support the third cohort of researchers coming this next year, and the product or service you produce has to be it needs to kind of allow, the aim of it is to allow everyone to remain active, productive, independent and socially connected across generations for as long as possible, and narrow the gap between the experience of the richest and poorest are things that would be eligible. So this could be products or services delivered in the community or in a care home setting or anything related to aging. But of course, we've been particularly talking about dementia today. Thank you, Tim. We're going to have a little time for questions from anybody from the who's listening in a short while. When we get to that point, there'll be a little button there at the bottom. You'll see a heart. If you tap that heart button, you'll see a raise hand, which you can raise your hand and we'll activate your microphone so you can ask a question of Laura, Tim, or Jack. But before we do that, I'm just going to come to anybody who wants to take this one first of all. So let's take this to you first of all, I think maybe Tim. What does taking an entrepreneurial approach to research translation kind of mean to you?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so we talk about taking this kind of entrepreneurial approach as part of the Catalyst Awards, and I think there's a few things we mean by that. So one is the kind of approach to developing a product. So moving from a focus on research and kind of answering research questions to a focus on building something that's really engaging and that people really want to use, as well as being effective. And when you make that shift, there's a few things that are relevant. So, for example, particularly the idea of kind of human-centered design and really understanding your users well, understanding their contexts, what's important to them. But also taking a more kind of flexible approach to developing a product and perhaps a shorter timescale. So rather than developing a really good test that gives you definitive answers on particular questions, it's identifying those questions. And again, like as Jack was saying, using your kind of research skills to identify what questions you need to answer and developing tests to answer them. But doing that in a faster way, it might not produce such a definitive result, but allows you to learn very quickly and develop your idea based on that and then move on to try something else and test it again. So learning and testing in fast cycles rather than kind of planning one long research study that gives you a really definitive answer. So that's the kind of product development side of things. But then there's also this entrepreneurial approach to kind of building something that's scalable and sustainable. So having the ambition to really get your product and service out to people, having the grit to kind of see that through the kind of daily challenges, the kinds of things that Jack was describing, and spending time and effort on those aspects of who's going to pay for it, what do they need, what's the structure that you'll need to kind of grow this as a business or a charity or an enterprise, whatever it might be. So thinking about those kind of skill sets that are kind of outside of research and outside of product development, but that are really essential in order to get your solution to everyone who needs it.
That kind of plan, do, study, act. I seem to recall from my NHS Innovation Days. So thank you, Tim. So actually, I've got two more questions before we take questions from the audience. First of all is, what would you say to anybody? I'm going to ask Tim first of all, what you say to anybody who's thinking of applying, and then actually, let's just ask everybody that question. I'm going to come to you first, Tim. What would you say to anybody who's thinking of applying?
So I've really encouraged people to apply, to come along to some of our workshops where we're talking more about the process and how we do things. What we really want this to be is for even the process of applying itself to be an interesting process, and to get people thinking differently about how they can turn their research into action. So we hope that that process and the support we give people to think through that will be valuable to them, whether they end up being successful in this grant or not. And we really hope that these awards and that what they're designed to do is to help researchers to really make the difference they want to make, that sometimes grants don't give them the flexibility to do. We really hope that these grants are opportunities for researchers to do what they're really passionate about, what they really care about. And if that sounds of interest to you, we'd love you to find out more about the process by joining one of our workshops and putting an application in expression of interest in February. And as it is just an expression of interest stage, we try to keep it quite light on the application, so we hope it's not too onerous, the application in the first instance.
So lightweight, expression of interest, and then there are workshops as well that allow you to ask more questions, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. We kind of explain a little bit more about what we're trying to achieve with the Catalyst Awards and what we'd like to see in applications.
And then is there a presentation stage, and what stages do applicants go through?
Sure, yeah. So the expressions of interest are open in February. And then after that, we'll do shortlisting, and shortlisted candidates will be asked to submit a case for support. So there's a little bit more detail about what they're going to do with the money and that. And then they go through to a Dragon's Den style pitching event where, so as well as their case for support, we have a kind of pitch from them. So we hear directly from people what they want to do and have the opportunity to ask them a few questions about their project before making a decision about who will get funded.
Brilliant. And you don't already have to be a company, as we've said before. You just have to have a great idea and that's going to really help people and be motivated and inspired to take this forward. Thank you. Jack, you've been through this process already. What would you say to anybody who's thinking of applying?
I think if you've got something there, if you've got an idea, or you've got something there in your research that you really believe needs to be out there and into the hands of people who need it, then absolutely go for something like this. These types of awards really are the best way of making it happen because of that support that you'll get. It's all about, having gone through this, it's all about building the right networks, and it is stepping outside of your comfort zone a little and having to learn new skills, but you need those people to support you. So building that network's really important, and it's from being part of an award like this that will really make it happen, and that's what it did for us. It really opened many doors. So yeah, go for it, and be very passionate about why you're doing it and what you want to get from it as well.
We've lost you, Adam. Are you still there?
Oh, sorry. I'm talking to myself on mute. I said, thank you, Jack. That's brilliant. And same question to you, Laura. What would you say to anybody thinking of applying?
I think even listening to Jack's experience now is pretty inspirational, because she's the cohort ahead of me or two ahead of me. So it's really good to hear what she's speaking about. I would say apply, and I'd especially encourage people that have an idea that keeps on falling in the cracks with grants or with research projects. So maybe something more on the marginalized side of research endeavors. And also, I think one thing, Tim, that you didn't bring up about the program that adds to kind of develop the individual's personal on the fourth pillar of their person is the career coach. So we have access to a career coach with our grant, as well as the cohort sessions and speaking to experts. So it's really just an absolutely brilliant and unique program. So I'd highly encourage people to apply.
Brilliant. Thank you, Laura. So we've got 7 minutes left allocated to today, by which most of our listeners have gone. But if you do have a question, you can raise your hand now. Otherwise, we will be recording this. We're going to post it up to our YouTube channel so that everybody can have a listen, and we'll make sure we share this. But if there are no questions, thank you very much, Tim, Laura, and Jack. Good luck with the sales, Jack. Are they coming in thick and fast? Is it going well?
Absolutely. Can't keep up with them. Yeah, it's going really well.
Brilliant. And Laura, do let us know when you get to the point of launching. We'd love to talk to you some more about the service.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much, Adam. It's a pleasure.
And Tim, good luck with the next call. I hope you get lots of great applicants. Anybody listening, I think if you've got an idea, and this sounds like the most amazing package of support, both not just, of course, financially, because it allows you to cover the cost of your time that you want to spend on this, but also, more importantly, those connections and that practical support for getting off the ground sounds really valuable.
Thank you very much, Adam, for hosting us. And it's been great to hear from Laura, the kind of support she's been getting on the Catalyst programme, and from Jack about, although she wasn't part of the Catalyst programme, the kind of support she's had through other similar programmes, and the value that these sorts of programmes can bring to people who want to do this kind of work. So yeah, really great to hear from all of you. Thank you very much, everyone, for their time.
Thank you. Have a great Friday, and enjoy the weekend.